Have you ever had this happen to you? Someone asks you something simple, something you completely understand, and your brain has the answer, but your mouth says something small instead. Good. Fine. I don't know. And then, maybe an hour later, while you're doing something completely unrelated, like washing dishes or driving home, the perfect sentence just shows up, out of nowhere. Sound familiar? Here's something I've noticed after years of working with English learners. This isn't a vocabulary problem. Not even close. Most people who freeze like this already know enough words. What they're missing is something smaller, something almost invisible. They don't know how to connect the English they already have. Hey, welcome back to English Speaking Way Extra. I'm Sarah, and today we're doing something a little different. We're not going to memorize a vocabulary list. Instead, we're going to walk through real moments, the kind that happen to you every single day, and I'm going to show you exactly how to respond in each one, naturally, like someone who's actually comfortable speaking English. Because here's the truth nobody tells you. Real conversations don't wait for you to prepare. Your coworker walks up and just starts talking. A friend calls you and asks how your week went. Someone you haven't seen in months says, "Hey," and suddenly you have 3 seconds to respond like a normal human being. So while you're listening today, do one thing for me. Don't just sit back and absorb this passively. The moment a sentence feels useful to you, say it out loud, right where you are. Even better, change one small word and make it about your actual life. That one small habit is the difference between a sentence you understand and a sentence you can use, under pressure, in real time. All right, let's start small, almost too small. What do you say after hello? You already know the basics. Hi, hello, how are you? Every learner knows those. But real conversations don't stop there. They keep going. And that's exactly where most people get stuck. Let me give you a real scenario. Say you walk into a coffee shop and you unexpectedly spot someone you know, maybe a former classmate, maybe someone from your gym. The textbook response is, "Hello, how are you?" Fine, correct, but a little flat. Here's what a native speaker would probably say instead. "Hey, good to see you." Or, "Hi, how's everything going?" Or, if it's someone you've bumped into recently, "Hey, how's your day going?" Notice something about these. They're relaxed, casual, almost like you're not even trying. And here's a myth I want to break right now, because I hear it constantly from learners. Fluency does not mean speaking fast. I've met people who speak English slowly, carefully, and still sound completely fluent. Because fluency isn't about speed, it's about your words staying connected. No big gaps, no restarting your sentence 3 times. Let's practice that first one together. "Hey, good to see you." One more time, a little slower. "Hey, good to see you." Now, different situation. What if it's been a long time since you've seen this person? Months, maybe longer? Try this. "It's been a while. How have you been?" That phrase, "it's been a while," is one of those small tools you can reuse constantly. Old friend, ex-coworker, old classmate, distant cousin you only see at weddings? It always fits. And often they'll respond with, "What have you been up to lately?" Now here's something important. Don't translate that word by word. Your brain will try to. Resist it. Learn it as one whole chunk. What have you been up to lately? It simply means, what have you been doing recently? And here's the real-life trap. Someone you haven't spoken to in 6 months finally asks you that question, and you just say, "Nothing." That's it? 6 months of your life and nothing? Let's fix that. Try one of these instead. "I've been pretty busy with work lately. I've been focusing on my studies. I've been trying to improve my English, actually." Or, my personal favorite for a busy season of life, "I've been keeping busy, but things are going pretty well." None of these are complicated sentences. Nothing advanced here. They're just complete. One extra layer more than nothing. And that one extra layer is often the entire difference between sounding like a beginner and sounding like someone who's actually comfortable. Someone asks, "How's your day going?" Instead of just "good," try, "It's been pretty good so far." Maybe your morning genuinely started rough. traffic, a spilled coffee, whatever it was. Then say, "It started out a little stressful, but it's getting better." Maybe you're just tired. Long day, no real drama. "It's been a long day, but I'm getting through it." Or maybe, rare, but it happens, "Everything's actually going great. It's been a really productive day so far." These responses do something small but powerful. They give the other person something to actually respond to. A door to keep the conversation going, instead of a wall. And that's the real skill here. Not just answering, keeping the conversation alive. Let's make this real for a second. Think about your actual morning today. What happened? Maybe you woke up later than you planned. Instead of the plain, "I woke up late." Try, "I ended up waking up later than usual." That little phrase, "I ended up," is incredibly useful whenever something happened differently than you expected. "I ended up taking the bus instead." "I ended up staying late at work." "I ended up watching a movie way later than I planned." Now think about your morning tasks. Maybe you got a lot done. Instead of, "I worked a lot," a little boring honestly, try, "I got quite a few things done this morning." Or, "I spent the morning catching up on a few important tasks." Catch up on. Remember this phrase, it's everywhere in daily English. You can catch up on emails, catch up on work, catch up on homework. You can even catch up with a friend. Different meaning, same phrase family. For example, "I spent the morning catching up on emails." Say that one with me slowly. I spent the morning catching up on emails. Now make it yours. Change it. Maybe, "I spent the morning catching up on some work." Or, "I spent the morning catching up on my assignments." See what just happened? You're not memorizing English anymore. You're describing your life with it. And here's something I've seen over and over, working with learners for years. If you learn 20 new sentences today, and none of them connect to your actual life, most of them disappear by tomorrow. But one sentence, tied to something that really happened to you this morning, your brain holds on to that. It has a reason to remember. Let's keep going through the day. Imagine a coworker asks, "How did your morning go?" You could say, "It was pretty productive. I managed to get a lot done." Or, if it was a mess, "It was a little hectic, but I got through everything." Hectic. Great word. Very B1 to B2 friendly. It means busy, chaotic, lots happening at once. It was a hectic morning. Things have been pretty hectic at work lately. Or maybe, on a rare calm day, it was actually quite relaxed. I had some time to myself. And again, don't just listen passively. Picture yourself actually in that conversation. Pick one sentence. Say it out loud right now, wherever you are. Because your goal was never to understand English. Your goal is to have it ready, available, the second you need it. All right, now let's move somewhere a little trickier. A situation that happens constantly and, honestly, trips up even confident speakers. Giving your opinion. Maybe you're with coworkers discussing an idea. Maybe you're with friends debating a movie or a restaurant. Someone turns to you and says, "What do you think?" The safe answer is, "I think it's good." Fine, works, but limited. At this level, you've got much better tools. Try, "Personally, I think it's a great idea. From my point of view, it could work really well. I honestly think it's worth trying." The way I see it, we've got a few good options. These give you something valuable, a few extra seconds to organize your thoughts, while sounding completely natural doing it. And if you want someone else's opinion, what do you think about it? How do you feel about that? I'd like to hear your thoughts. In a more professional setting, try, "Do you have any thoughts on this?" Or, especially useful at work, "I'd appreciate your perspective." But here's where it gets genuinely tricky. Real conversations aren't always about agreeing. Sometimes you disagree. And this is exactly where a lot of learners freeze up. They know, no. But saying it directly can feel too sharp, too blunt. So here's the fix. Soften it. "I see where you're coming from, but I have a slightly different view. I understand your point, but I'm not completely convinced. That's an interesting idea. I'm just not sure it would work in this situation." Notice what these sentences do. They acknowledge the other person first. Then, gently, they introduce your own view. That's not just an English skill, that's a life skill. Sounding respectful while still saying exactly what you think. Picture yourself in a group conversation. Someone says, "I think we should change the plan." You don't agree. Instead of the blunt, "No, that's a bad idea," try, "I see where you're coming from, but I think we should consider another option." Much smoother, much more natural. And if you do agree, "I completely agree. That's exactly how I see it. I couldn't agree more." Or something a little more relaxed. "Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense." These small phrases, they're what make a conversation feel real. Not like a textbook exercise, like an actual human exchange. One more thing before we move on, and this comes from years of watching what actually works for learners. Don't try to memorize everything at once. That's the fastest way to forget all of it. Pick two. Maybe today it's, "From my point of view," and "I see where you're coming from, but..." Use them today. Use them in different conversations, on different topics. Tomorrow, add two more. That's how flexible English actually gets built. Not all at once, piece by piece, used in real moments. Because one day, probably when you least expect it, someone's going to ask you for your opinion out of nowhere. And instead of freezing, you'll already have the sentence sitting right there, ready. But opinions? That's only one piece of this. There's another moment that happens just as often, maybe even more, and it's honestly one of the trickiest. It's when something goes wrong. Something unexpected happens, and suddenly you're the one who has to explain it, clearly, calmly, in real time. Because here's the thing. When something unexpected happens, you almost never need complicated English to explain it. What you actually need is a simple, ready-made way to start talking, without freezing. I've noticed this so many times with learners. They know the vocabulary, they know the grammar rules inside and out. But the moment someone turns to them and asks, "What happened?" their brain just stalls. It starts translating from their native language first, then converting that into English. And by the time the sentence is finally ready, honestly, the conversation has already moved on without them. So instead of building every single sentence completely from scratch, let's give you a few natural starter phrases, expressions that basically do the thinking time for you. Things like, "So basically, the thing is," "What happened was..." These three little phrases are incredibly powerful because they give you a natural human way to begin an explanation before you even know exactly how you're going to finish it. Let's say your friend asks, "Why were you late?" You could say, "So basically, I missed the bus and had to wait for the next one." Or, "The thing is, I left home a little later than usual." Or, "What happened was, I couldn't find my keys before I left." Notice what these phrases actually do for you. They buy you a few seconds, a little breathing room. You don't need a perfect sentence sitting ready in your head. You just need a natural doorway in. Let's make this really practical. Imagine you told someone you were going to the gym yesterday. You didn't go. Now they ask, "Didn't you say you were going to the gym?" Ooh, awkward. You could say, "Yeah, the thing is, I had a lot of work to finish." Maybe you missed your bus this morning. "What happened was, I left the house a little too late." Maybe, and this happens to literally everyone, you forgot something important. "So, basically, I realized I'd left my phone at home." These aren't rare, dramatic situations. These are Tuesday morning problems. Which is exactly why these expressions are worth actually learning, not just recognizing. You can use them at work, with friends, at school, while traveling. Honestly, anytime someone asks you to explain literally anything. All right, your turn. Think of a small problem you had recently. Genuinely, right now, think of one. Maybe you were late somewhere. Maybe you missed an appointment. Maybe you forgot something you needed. Maybe your plans just changed at the last minute. Now start with, "The thing is..." Take a second. Let your brain finish it. For example, "The thing is, I had a really busy morning." One more time, a little slower. "The thing is, I had a really busy morning." That's not complicated English at all. But it sounds natural because you're not just learning words anymore. You're learning how people actually organize a real conversation. And as we keep going, you'll start noticing something. Natural English is built from these small pieces. A phrase here, a little connector there, a short response that just keeps things moving. Now let's step into something that happens almost everywhere, constantly, all day, every day. Small talk. I know. Small talk can feel unimportant, almost pointless. But think honestly about how often you're actually in it. You walk into work. You run into a neighbor. You're standing there waiting for the elevator. You're sitting next to someone new in class. You're waiting in line for your coffee. You spot a colleague in the hallway. None of these are deep, meaningful conversations, but every single one is a real opportunity to practice actual spoken English. Instead of the plain, "Hi," try, "Busy day so far?" Or, "How's your morning going?" Or, "It's been quite a morning, hasn't it?" Or, "How's everything on your side?" These little lines instantly make an interaction feel more human, less robotic. Picture this. You walk into your workplace, spot a colleague, and say, "Hey, good to see you. How's your morning going so far?" They respond, "Pretty busy, actually." Now, and this part matters a lot, you could respond, "I can imagine. It's been pretty hectic for me too." That one response does something really important. It shows the other person you're actually listening. And that, right there, is a massive part of good communication, in any language. Being fluent isn't only about how well you speak, it's also about how well you respond when someone else is speaking to you. Let's say your coworker says, "I barely slept last night." You could just say, "Okay." Technically, that's a response, but it doesn't really show connection, does it? It kind of closes the conversation down. Instead, try, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I hope you feel better later." Or, "I can imagine. Hopefully the rest of your day goes a little more smoothly." Now imagine someone says, "My morning has been crazy." You could say, "I can imagine. Mine's been pretty hectic too." Or, "Yeah, I know what you mean. It's been one of those mornings." That last phrase, "It's been one of those mornings," is genuinely one of my favorites. It means the morning's been difficult, chaotic, full of small, annoying problems one after another. Maybe you spilled your coffee, missed the bus, your phone died right when you needed it, forgot your keys on the way out, showed up late anyway somehow. You look at your coworker and you just say, "It's been one of those mornings," and instantly they get it. No further explanation needed. That's the kind of English I really want you paying attention to. Not just vocabulary sitting in a list somewhere, but meaning, emotion, the actual situation behind the words. Now let's move into a skill you'll genuinely use constantly, making polite requests. This matters at work, at home, in stores, while traveling. Basically, anytime you need another human being to do something for you. A beginner might just say, "Send me the report." Understandable, sure, but depending on who you're talking to, it can land as too blunt, even a little rude. A softer version, "Could you send me the report when you have a moment?" Much more polite. Or, "Would you mind closing the window? It's a little cold in here." Or, "Do you think you could help me with this?" Or, "Would it be possible to move the meeting to tomorrow?" Notice, you're still asking for exactly the same thing. Nothing's changed about what you want. You're just softening how you ask for it. And that softness matters more than most learners realize. Let's practice one together. Imagine you need someone to explain something again, you didn't quite catch it. Instead of the blunt, "Explain that again." Try, "Could you explain that again, a little more slowly?" One more time. "Could you explain that again, a little more slowly?" Maybe you need someone to wait a moment. "Would you mind waiting for just a moment?" Maybe you genuinely need help with something. "Do you think you could help me with this?" Now, imagine you're at work, and your coworker is struggling, carrying way too many boxes at once, obviously overloaded. You don't just stand there and watch. You say, "Do you need a hand?" Such a useful little phrase. "Do you need a hand?" simply means, do you need some help? And it's completely natural, completely casual. Maybe instead someone's fighting with a computer problem. You could offer, would you like me to take a look? Or, I can help you with that if you'd like. And if they say yes, sure, I'd be happy to. Or, no problem at all. Or, let me take care of it. Small sentences, but they make everyday human interactions so much smoother. And here's something genuinely important for how you practice. Don't rush these phrases. Fluency doesn't come from trying to say everything as fast as possible. First, make the sentence clear. Then, make it smooth. Then, and only then, let speed happen naturally on its own. For example, slowly. Would you mind waiting for just a moment? Now a little smoother. Would you mind waiting for just a moment? One more time. Would you mind waiting for just a moment? Your mouth needs repetition just as much as your brain does. That's not a joke, it's actually true. Muscle memory matters in speaking. Now let's move into something that comes up constantly, explaining why. Someone asks, why were you late? Why did you change your plans? Why didn't you come yesterday? Why are you working from home today? You need to give a reason. And instead of always defaulting to the plain, because, you can make your explanation sound noticeably more natural. Try, the reason I was late is that traffic was really heavy. Or, I decided to change my plans because I needed some extra rest. Or, what happened was, I wasn't feeling well. Or, the main reason is that I had too much work to finish. Let's make this personal again. Maybe you skipped breakfast today. Be honest, did you? The reason I skipped breakfast is that I was running late. Maybe you walked somewhere instead of taking the bus. I decided to walk because the weather was so nice. Maybe, and this one might hit close to home, you didn't study English yesterday. The main reason I didn't study was that I had a really busy day. Now, you're not just practicing grammar rules, you're practicing English about your own real life. And that's powerful, because suddenly the language actually means something. You're not repeating random textbook filler, you're telling your own small story. And when you can tell small stories in English, your overall communication becomes so much stronger. Now, here's a part of communication a lot of learners completely overlook: talking about how you actually feel. If someone asks, how are you feeling today? You don't always have to default to good, fine, bad. English gives you so many more precise ways to describe your emotional state. If you're feeling positive, I'm feeling pretty upbeat today. Upbeat means cheerful, positive, energetic. You could also say, I'm in a really good mood today, or I'm feeling quite positive about things. If you're tired, I'm feeling a bit drained. Drained means you've basically got very little energy left, or I'm running low on energy today. Maybe you've had way too much to deal with lately. You could say, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed, or I've got a lot on my plate right now. That expression, a lot on my plate, means you've got a lot of responsibilities, a lot of things pulling at your attention. If you're calm, I'm feeling pretty relaxed today, or simply, I'm in a calm mood. Now pause for a second, genuinely. How are you feeling today? Don't grab the easiest, laziest answer. Pick one phrase that actually, honestly describes you right now. Maybe, I'm feeling pretty focused today. Maybe, I'm a little overwhelmed, honestly. Maybe, I'm running low on energy. Say it out loud, right now, wherever you're listening from. Because when you learn to describe your emotions in English, you're doing something bigger than memorizing vocabulary. You're learning how to express your actual, lived experience. And that's exactly why real-life English feels so different from textbook English. Real conversations carry emotion in them. Sometimes you're excited. Sometimes you're frustrated. Sometimes you're nervous before something big. Sometimes you're just tired. And sometimes, honestly, you simply don't know what to say. Think about someone starting a brand new job. Nervous, but excited too. They might say, "I'm a little nervous, but I'm really looking forward to it." Someone who's had a genuinely brutal week might say, "It's been a long week. I've got a lot on my plate." Someone who just finished a difficult project, exhausted but proud. "I'm exhausted, but honestly, I feel pretty good about it." That's natural communication. That's exactly what we're building here, piece by piece. Not perfect English, usable English. English you can actually reach for the moment a real situation shows up in front of you. And maybe you're sitting there wondering, okay, but how do I actually make all of this stay in my memory instead of forgetting it by tomorrow morning? That's really about how you practice, not just how much you listen. If you're listening to this while doing something else, cooking, commuting, whatever, you might understand the lesson just fine in the moment. But understanding something once? That's genuinely not enough. You need to hear useful expressions again. Say them out loud yourself. Change them slightly. Connect them to something that actually happened to you. Take this one, for instance. "I've got a lot on my plate." Don't just memorize it and move on to the next thing. Make it yours. "I've got a lot on my plate at work this week." Or, "I've got a lot on my plate right now, so I'll call you later." Now the phrase has a real situation attached to it. It has actual meaning. It has a genuine reason to stick in your memory instead of just sliding out. And if this lesson's actually been useful to you so far, share it with someone else who's working on their English too. Maybe you know a friend who understands English perfectly, but freezes up the second they need to actually speak it. Maybe someone in your family is learning English for a new job. Maybe you know that one person who always says, "I understand English, but I never know what to actually say." Send this to them, because sometimes one useful sentence, arriving at exactly the right moment, can genuinely make someone's whole day a little easier. And if you found today's expressions useful, drop a comment and tell me just one sentence from today that you want to actually start using in your real life. Maybe it's, "The thing is," maybe it's, "I've got a lot on my plate." Maybe it's, "Do you need a hand?" Or honestly, any other phrase from today that stuck with you. And here's why I actually want that comment. It's not just about hearing from you. Writing your sentence down forces your brain to actually use the English, actively, instead of just watching, nodding, and moving on to the next video. Now, so far, we've talked about explaining what happened, small talk, making requests, giving reasons, even naming your emotions. But there's one more everyday situation we haven't touched yet, and it's one that catches almost every learner off guard, because it happens the fastest, with the least time to think. Because here's the truth. Knowing individual phrases is useful. But the real skill? Being able to connect them smoothly while a conversation just keeps moving forward without you freezing every few seconds. Think about a completely normal week in your life. Someone asks you to make plans. Then, of course, those plans change. Someone asks for your advice on something. You explain what you actually prefer. Your daily routine comes up naturally in conversation. And then, almost inevitably, a small misunderstanding happens. These moments aren't rare. They happen constantly. So instead of treating English as separate little topics, let's connect them the way they actually show up in real life. Let's start with something simple, making plans. Imagine your friend texts you, "Are you free this evening?" You could say, "I'm busy." Correct. But a little flat, right? There's more natural ways to say this. Maybe you already have something going on. "I've already got something scheduled." Maybe you've made arrangements already. "I've already made some arrangements for tonight." Or maybe you just want a quiet night in. "I'm planning to spend the evening at home." Notice each one gives just a little more information, a little more texture. Now flip it. Imagine you want to invite someone. Instead of the plain, "Do you want to go out?" Try, "Would you like to grab a coffee later?" Or, "Are you free to meet up this evening?" Or, with someone close to you, Do you feel like grabbing something to eat later? These sound natural because honestly, this is exactly how real invitations happen. Now, here's a tricky one. Your friend invites you somewhere, and you genuinely can't go. This is exactly where a lot of learners get too blunt. They just say, I can't come. Understandable. But if you want to sound warmer, genuinely warmer, try, I'd love to, but I've already got something planned. Or, thanks for inviting me, but I won't be able to make it. Or, I really appreciate the invitation, but I'm tied up that evening. Tied up, remember that one. It just means busy, unavailable. So imagine your friend says, we're having dinner on Friday. Do you want to come? You could say, I'd love to, but I'm tied up that evening. Maybe we could do something next week? See what that does? You're not just rejecting the invitation and leaving it there. You're keeping the relationship warm, keeping the door open. Let's try one more. Someone asks, are you free tomorrow evening? But honestly, you're not sure yet. You don't have to force a yes or no right now. Just say, I might be. Let me check and get back to you. Let me check and get back to you. Extremely useful phrase. It just means you'll look at your schedule and reply later. Try it again, slower. I might be. Let me check and get back to you. Now, maybe you don't even know what they've got in mind. You can just ask, what did you have in mind? Natural way to find out what's actually being suggested. Maybe they say, we could grab dinner. You respond, that sounds good. What time were you thinking? See how naturally that flows? One sentence leads right into the next. That's exactly the kind of speaking ability we're building here. Not memorized lines, but a conversation that actually moves. Now let's change the scene completely. Your friend has a problem. Maybe they're drowning in work. Maybe they genuinely don't know what to do. Maybe they're struggling with their English, just like you sometimes do. This is where you practice giving suggestions. Instead of the direct, do this, which can sound a little bossy, honestly, try, maybe you could try, for example, maybe you could take a short break. Or, have you considered talking to your manager? Or, one option might be to start with something smaller. Notice, these don't force your opinion onto the other person. You're offering it, gently. Imagine your friend says, I'm completely overwhelmed with work. You could say, maybe you could break the work into smaller steps. Or, have you considered asking someone to help you with that project? Or, one option might be to finish the most urgent task first. Now imagine someone struggling to learn English. Sound familiar to anyone? You could say, maybe you could practice for 10 minutes a day instead of trying to force 2 hours. That's a suggestion, but it's also empathy. And honestly, good communication was never really about advanced vocabulary. It's about actually understanding the person in front of you. Now let's talk about preferences. Someone asks, what kind of movies do you like? I like movies. Fine. But let's do better. Try, I tend to enjoy adventure movies. Or, I'm more into dramas and mystery films. Or, I usually go for something light and funny. These are flexible. You can use this exact structure for food, music, activities, travel, even work. I tend to eat something light for lunch. I'm more into outdoor activities on weekends. I usually go for a quiet evening at home. Or, I prefer working in the morning when I've got more energy. Now make it personal. What do you actually prefer on a quiet weekend? Maybe, I usually go for a long walk. Maybe, I prefer staying home and watching a movie. Maybe, I'm more into spending time outdoors. Pick one sentence that's actually true for your real life. Because when you connect English to your real preferences, you're not reciting empty sentences. You're practicing your English. The exact same trick works for your daily routine. Instead of, I wake up at 7, try, I usually start my day around 7. Or, I tend to wake up pretty early most days. Instead of, I drink coffee, try, I like to start my morning with a cup of coffee. Instead of, I work until 5, try, I normally finish work around 5. Or, my workday usually wraps up in the late afternoon. Wraps up means finishes. Really common, really useful. The meeting should wrap up around 3. I'll call you when I'm wrapping up work. Let's actually build a short routine together. Imagine I'm describing my own day. I usually start my day around 7. I like to have a quick breakfast before work, and then I spend the morning focusing on my most important tasks. I normally take a short break around lunchtime to reset my mind. My workday usually wraps up in the late afternoon. Compare that to, I wake up, I eat breakfast, I work, I finish work. Same information, basically, but one feels connected, human, and the other feels like a checklist. And that's really one of the biggest shifts at this level. You don't need more complicated ideas, you need more connected ones. Now let's step into something that makes even confident learners a little nervous: misunderstandings. Because sometimes you don't understand someone. Sometimes they don't understand you. And genuinely, that's completely normal. Even native speakers ask people to repeat themselves constantly. It happens every single day, everywhere. The problem was never asking someone to repeat something. The real problem is staying silent when you didn't actually understand. Imagine someone's talking fast and you miss the last part. Don't just say, "What?" Try, "Sorry, could you repeat that?" Or, "I didn't quite catch that, could you say it again?" Or, "Would you mind speaking a little more slowly?" These sound polite, confident even. Maybe you're in a work meeting and someone explains something quickly. You say, "Sorry, I didn't quite catch the last part, could you go over that again?" That's genuinely a stronger communication move than nodding along and pretending you understood. Now flip it. Imagine you got misunderstood. Maybe you said, "I'll be available later," but they think you mean right after lunch. You clarify, "Sorry, maybe I wasn't clear." Then, "What I meant was that I'll be available later in the evening." Another really strong phrase, "Let me put it another way." For example, "Let me put it another way. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. I'm saying we may need more time." Excellent for those moments where your meaning could easily get lost. Quick practice. Imagine someone asks you something too fast. Take a breath. Don't panic. Just say, "Sorry, I didn't catch that. Could you repeat it?" One more time, slower. "Sorry, I didn't catch that. Could you repeat it?" Now imagine you explain something and the person just looks confused. Say, "Maybe I wasn't clear. Let me explain it another way." That's it. You don't need perfect English in that moment. You need a way to keep the conversation alive. And this is something I really want you to hold on to. Confident speakers aren't people who never run into communication problems. They're people who know exactly what to do the moment a problem shows up. That's the actual difference. Forget a word? Explain it another way. Don't understand? Ask them to repeat it. Someone misunderstood you? Clarify, calmly. Need more time to think? Use a natural phrase to buy yourself a second. English gets so much easier the moment you stop expecting yourself to be perfect and start learning how to recover naturally instead. Now, think about your real reason for learning English. Maybe it's travel. Maybe it's work. Maybe you want real conversations with international friends. Or maybe, and be honest, you've studied for years and you still freeze the second someone speaks to you out of nowhere. Whatever your reason is, these moments matter because they're not imaginary scenarios I made up. They're the exact moments where your English actually gets tested, in real time, with a real person waiting for a real response. And that's exactly why I don't want you to just watch this and think, "Okay, I understood everything." Understanding is only step 1. Take one sentence, say it out loud, change it slightly, use it in your own life. Come back to it later. That's genuinely how passive knowledge slowly turns into active speaking. All right, quick pause. If you've been with this channel for a while now, and you're still here, still practicing, still showing up, comment yes below and tell me where in the world you're watching from right now. I always love seeing that. Okay, back to it. Let's keep going. So far, together, you've practiced greetings, daily routines, opinions, explanations, small talk, polite requests, suggestions, preferences, plans, and misunderstandings. That's genuinely a lot already. But there's one more piece of daily communication left, and honestly, it might be the one that changes how natural you sound more than anything else we've covered so far. It's what you say the moment something doesn't go according to plan. A meeting suddenly gets delayed. A friend cancels last minute. A reservation turns out to be wrong. Someone hits you with unexpected news. You make a mistake, right in front of someone. Or your plans just completely change, out of nowhere. And in exactly those moments, knowing the right words can change everything. Because that's where real conversation stops being predictable. Because once you know how to handle misunderstandings, adjust your plans, offer a suggestion, explain what you prefer, there's one more skill that becomes genuinely essential: knowing how to agree or disagree without making things awkward. Think about how often this actually happens in a day. A coworker throws out an idea. A friend recommends a movie you're not sure about. Someone gives you advice you didn't ask for. You're deciding where to eat dinner. You're talking about working from home versus the office. You've got your own opinion. But you don't want to come across as rude or dismissive. That's exactly where natural agreement and disagreement become genuinely useful tools. If you agree with someone, you don't always need the plain yes. Try, absolutely. I completely agree with you. I think you're right. That's exactly how I see it. Or, in something more casual, yeah, I feel the same way. Imagine your friend says, I think working from home gives people more flexibility. You could say, absolutely, it gives people much more control over their schedule. Or, I completely agree. I think the flexibility is one of the biggest advantages. Now imagine you actually disagree. You don't need, no, that's wrong. That's harsh. Instead, try, I see your point, but I look at it a little differently. Or, I understand what you mean, but I have a slightly different view. Or, that's an interesting perspective, but I'm not completely convinced. Notice what's actually happening here. You're not attacking the person. You're responding to the idea. That's a genuinely important distinction in mature adult communication. Let's try one together. Someone says, I think studying late at night is the best way to learn English. You disagree. Try, I see your point, but I find it easier to concentrate in the morning. One more time. I see your point, but I find it easier to concentrate in the morning. Now make it real for you. Maybe you genuinely do study better at night. Plenty of people do. Then say, I understand what you mean, but personally, I focus better in the evening. That's completely natural English. And remember, you don't need to sound like you're writing a business report. The goal isn't formality. The goal is sounding comfortable and clear. Now let's move into something you'll hear constantly, talking about experiences. Someone asks, how was your weekend? How was your trip? Did you enjoy the movie? How was the restaurant? The lazy answer is, it was good. But think about it. If someone's asking about your experience, they usually want more than one flat word. So let's give your answers a little life. Instead of, it was good, try, it was a really refreshing experience, or it turned out better than I expected, or I actually enjoyed it more than I thought I would. Maybe something genuinely surprised you. It was surprisingly interesting. Maybe it wasn't perfect. It wasn't exactly what I expected, but I still enjoyed it. Or, it was a bit challenging, but I learned a lot from it. That last one, That's a powerful way to talk about difficult experiences. You're not just saying, it was bad, you're explaining your actual reaction to it. Imagine someone asks, how was your first day at your new job? You could say, it was a little overwhelming at first, but everyone was really helpful. Much more conversational, right? Or, it was challenging, but it turned out to be a really positive experience. Now think about something you actually did recently. Maybe you went somewhere, tried a new restaurant, watched something, learned something new. Describe it using one of these. It turned out. It was surprisingly. It wasn't exactly what I expected, but. Take a second. Now finish it with something real from your own life. That's exactly how you shift from memorized English to personal English. Now, a skill connected to this, expressing certainty and uncertainty. Because sometimes you're completely sure about something, and sometimes, honestly, you're just not. Someone asks, do you think the meeting is tomorrow? You're not totally sure. Instead of the plain, I don't know, try, I'm not entirely sure yet. Or, I'm a little unsure about that. Or, I'm still trying to figure it out. Maybe you just need more time. I'm not completely sure, let me check. These phrases communicate uncertainty without making you sound lost or unprepared. Now imagine you're actually completely confident. Someone asks, are you sure this is the right address? You could say, I'm completely certain, or I'm positive about that, or there's no doubt in my mind. But match the phrase to your actual confidence level. If you're only about 70% sure, don't say, there's no doubt in my mind. That's overselling it. Instead, I'm fairly sure, but let me double check. Much more honest. And here's something important about natural communication. You don't have to pretend you know everything. Sometimes saying, I'm not entirely sure, is actually more confident than confidently giving the wrong answer. Now, something that instantly makes spoken English sound more human, hesitation phrases. Real conversations aren't perfectly organized. People pause. They think mid-sentence. They restart. They search for a word that's just not coming to them. So if you need a second to think, that's completely normal. Instead of freezing entirely, use a natural filler phrase. Well, let me think about that. Or, actually, that's a good question. Or, I'm not really sure. Or, to be honest, I need a moment to think about that. Imagine someone suddenly asks, why do you want to learn English? You don't have to answer instantly. Start with, well, that's a good question. I think I mainly want to communicate more confidently. See what that phrase did? That's a good question bought you a little thinking room. Completely natural, native speakers do this constantly. Or someone asks, would you move to another country if you had the opportunity? Need a second? Say, let me think about that for a second. Then answer. That's real conversation. Don't fear the small pause. The goal was never to eliminate pauses entirely. It's learning to handle them naturally, without panic. Now, something that makes your English sound noticeably warmer, showing appreciation. Thank you works fine, of course, but there's so much more range available to you. If someone helps you, I really appreciate your help. Or, that was very kind of you. Or, thanks, I really appreciate it. Maybe someone stayed late just to help you out. I really appreciate you taking the time to help me. Maybe they were patient explaining something twice. I appreciate your patience. These phrases communicate more than basic thanks. They show you actually notice their effort. And when someone thanks you, you don't always need you're welcome. Try, no problem at all. Anytime. I'm happy to help. Or, of course, glad I could help. Picture this. You're stuck on something at work. Your coworker stays 10 extra minutes just to help you fix it. You say, thanks for staying and helping me. I really appreciate it. They respond, "No problem, anytime." Simple exchange. But that's real, lived English. And the more of these small moments you actually practice, the more natural you'll feel when they happen for real. Now let's bring several of these skills together, describing a problem and offering a solution. Because daily life isn't always smooth, right? Plans shift, technology breaks at the worst moment, someone misunderstands you, you show up late, a meeting gets pushed back, something unexpected just happens. Instead of the flat, "There's a problem," try, "I ran into a small issue." Ran into an issue means you unexpectedly hit a problem. "I ran into a small issue with my computer this morning." Or, "I've been facing a bit of a challenge with my schedule." Or, "Something unexpected came up." That last one is especially useful. Imagine someone asks, "Why couldn't you come yesterday?" You say, "Something unexpected came up, so I had to change my plans." Simple. Natural. Honestly, it works in almost any situation. Now, suggesting a solution. Instead of the blunt, "Do this," try, "One thing we could try is," or "Maybe a better approach would be to," or "One possible solution might be," for example, "One thing we could try is moving the meeting to tomorrow," or "Maybe a better approach would be to start with the most urgent task," or "One possible solution might be to divide the work between two people." These phrases help you sound calm even when something's genuinely gone wrong. And that calmness? That's exactly when good communication becomes most valuable. Let's connect this directly to your own English practice. Imagine you're speaking and you suddenly forget a word. It happens to everyone, even in your native language. Instead of stopping completely dead in your tracks, explain it another way. Can't remember umbrella? Say, "The thing you use when it's raining." Can't remember pharmacy? Say, "The place where you buy medicine." That's real communication. You don't need every single word memorized perfectly. You need the ability to work around the word that's missing. That skill alone will save you in more conversations than perfect grammar ever will. Now, something that matters whenever you're talking about yourself, your goals and future plans. Someone asks, "What are you working on these days?" "I'm trying to improve my English." Fine, works. But you can make it sharper, more specific. "One of my main goals is to become more confident when speaking English." Or, "I'm working on improving my listening skills." Or, "I'm hoping to expand my vocabulary over the next few months." Or, "I'm planning to work more on my pronunciation." Notice how much clearer these make your goals sound. And honestly, you can use this exact structure for almost anything in life. "One of my main goals is to get healthier." "I'm working on becoming more organized." "I'm hoping to save enough money to travel next year." "I'm planning to learn a new skill." Now think of one real goal you actually have. Doesn't need to be huge. Maybe it's speaking more confidently. Maybe understanding movies without subtitles. Maybe just feeling comfortable in a job interview. Say, "One of my main goals is..." Finish it. Now, "I'm working on..." Finish that too. And finally, "I'm hoping to..." 3 different ways to talk about the exact same future. And that flexibility genuinely matters, because real conversations never hand you a fixed sentence to recite. You need multiple ways to express the same core idea, depending on who's asking and how. One step further, sometimes you're not talking about something definite. You're talking about something you're just hoping happens. Waiting on an important result, starting a new job, preparing for an exam, hoping a rough situation gets better. Instead of always defaulting to, "I hope so," try, "I'm really hoping things go well," or "I hope everything works out for the best," or "I'm looking forward to seeing how it turns out." And if you're genuinely optimistic, "I'm expecting it to be a productive day," or "I'm hoping it will turn out better this time." These phrases carry something extra. Not just information, but attitude, emotion. And that's exactly what makes English feel human instead of mechanical. Because when people actually talk to each other, they're not just trading facts back and forth. They're expressing excitement, doubt, hope, frustration, relief, confidence, even uncertainty. So don't just ask yourself what a sentence means. Start asking, what feeling does this sentence actually carry? That one question can genuinely change the way you learn English from here on. And we're going to keep building on exactly that, because what comes next gets even more interesting. We're about to take everything you've learned so far, every phrase, every small skill, and start connecting them into longer, realistic conversations. The kind where you have to react in real time, explain yourself, change your answer halfway through, and keep the whole thing alive without stopping. And that is where you'll really find out if your English is actually ready for the real world. That's exactly where we're going next. All right, real-time conversations, reacting on the spot, changing your answer mid-sentence, that's exactly where we're headed. But first, one more skill needs to slide into place. Because now that you know how to talk about goals, hopes, problems, solutions, even uncertainty, let's take one more step forward. There's a real difference between just saying what happened and actually being able to tell the story naturally, the way a real person would. Think about it. In everyday conversations, people talk about what happened earlier constantly. A friend asks, "What did you do today?" A coworker asks, "How did your meeting go?" Someone asks, "What happened yesterday?" Or maybe you're just telling someone about something funny that happened an hour ago, completely unplanned. This is exactly where your ability to describe past events becomes genuinely important. Instead of always defaulting to short, flat answers like, "I went there," "I did it," "I met my friend." Let's make those feel more natural, more human. For example, instead of, "I went to the store," try, "I ended up going to the store to pick up a few things," or "I stopped by the store on my way home." Notice immediately that sentence gives you more. Where did you go? Why? When? How did it even happen? That's exactly what makes a conversation actually interesting to listen to. Imagine someone asks, "What did you do after work?" Maybe you hadn't planned to go anywhere at all. You could say, "I ended up meeting a friend for dinner." That phrase, "I ended up," incredibly useful. It usually describes something that happened differently than what you originally expected. I ended up staying home. I ended up working late. I ended up watching a movie. I ended up taking a different route. Let's make one personal. Think about yesterday, genuinely. Did something happen that you hadn't originally planned? Maybe you meant to study but got busy. I ended up working instead of studying. Maybe you planned to stay home but a friend called. I ended up going out with a friend. That's far more useful than just memorizing the phrase in isolation. You're attaching it to something that actually happened to you. Now let's add one more layer. Sometimes something happens completely unexpectedly. You can say, "Something funny happened earlier," or "I had an interesting experience today," or "Something unexpected happened on my way home." These lines create instant curiosity. If you tell someone, "Something funny happened earlier," they're almost certainly going to ask, "Really? What happened?" And just like that, you've got a real conversation going, not just an exchange of facts. That's what natural English actually does. It doesn't just deliver information, it gives the other person a reason to lean in and respond. Let's build a small story together. Imagine you went to a cafe earlier today. Instead of the flat, "I went to a cafe." Try, "I happened to stop by a cafe on my way home." Maybe you saw someone you knew there. "I happened to run into an old friend while I was there." Run into someone means you met them completely unexpectedly. "I ran into my old teacher yesterday," or "I ran into a friend while I was out shopping." Genuinely useful, everyday expression. Now let's connect the pieces. I happened to stop by a cafe on my way home, and I actually ran into an old friend there. Listen to that. That's already starting to sound like a real story, isn't it? And notice, we didn't reach for a single difficult word. We just connected a few natural expressions together. That's exactly what you should be focused on at this level. Not bigger words, better connections. Now let's talk about something that naturally follows talking about the past habits. People talk about how their life used to look, all the time. Maybe your friend says, "You seem much healthier now." You might explain, "I used to eat a lot of fast food, but I don't anymore." That structure, "I used to," incredibly useful. It describes something that was common in the past, but simply isn't true anymore. I used to stay up really late. I used to drink a lot of coffee. I used to spend hours on social media. I used to study English only on weekends. Then you contrast it with your life right now. I used to study only on weekends, but now I practice a little every day. That's a genuinely natural way to talk about personal change, the kind everyone goes through. You can also say, back then I usually, for example, back then I usually stayed up late working on assignments, or back then I usually spent my weekends studying. Another useful one. I would often, for example, when I was younger, I would often go for long walks in the evening, or I would often watch movies with my family on weekends. Now think about your own past, genuinely. What's something you used to do? Maybe, I used to wake up really late. Maybe, I used to spend a lot of time playing video games. Maybe, and this one's common among learners, I used to be nervous whenever I spoke English. Now add the present. I used to be nervous whenever I spoke English, but I'm much more comfortable now. That's not just a grammar drill anymore. That's your actual story. And when grammar becomes part of your story, it just sticks. Much easier to remember. Now, another everyday skill, describing people. You might talk about a friend, a coworker, a family member, a teacher, someone you met traveling, someone who helped you recently. The easy words are nice, good, helpful. But honestly, those words don't tell the listener very much at all. Instead, try describing the person's actual personality. She's really warm and friendly, or he has a very positive energy, or she's incredibly thoughtful, or he's extremely supportive. You can also describe what the person actually does. He always goes out of his way to help people. Go out of your way means you make an extra, deliberate effort for someone. Genuinely useful phrase. Imagine you're talking about a coworker. Instead of, she's nice, try, she's really thoughtful and always makes an effort to help everyone on the team. Much more descriptive, right? Maybe you're describing someone who just makes people comfortable. He's the kind of person who makes everyone feel welcome. Or, she's the kind of person you can talk to about anything. These structures are powerful because you're not stuck hunting for one perfect adjective. You're describing a whole feeling. Now think of someone you genuinely admire. A friend, teacher, family member. Complete this. They're the kind of person who, maybe, they're the kind of person who always listens when someone needs help. Say that slowly. Then try, one thing I really appreciate about them is, maybe, one thing I really appreciate about her is that she's always honest with me. That's real personal English, not textbook filler. And now, describing places. Another spot where basic vocabulary boxes you in. You visit somewhere beautiful and you just say, "It's beautiful." Correct. But what did it actually feel like? What was the atmosphere? Crowded? Peaceful? Lively? Cozy? Quiet? Let's build richer descriptions. It had a really peaceful atmosphere. It was a lively place with a lot of energy. It was quiet, cozy, and perfect for relaxing. The area was surrounded by nature. It had a warm and welcoming atmosphere. These phrases help the listener actually picture the place instead of just hearing a fact about it. Describing a cafe? Instead of, "The cafe was good," try, "It had a really cozy atmosphere and it was surprisingly quiet." Or, "It was a small, lively place with a really friendly atmosphere." Describing a whole city? "It's a vibrant city with a lot going on." Or, "It's relatively quiet, but there's still plenty to do." Again, you're not chasing difficult vocabulary to sound impressive. You're helping someone see the place through your words. That's a genuinely powerful speaking skill. Now, something we use constantly without even thinking about it: talking about time. Instead of always, "I will go later," try, "I'll go in a little while." In a little while, after a short amount of time. "I'll call you back in a little while." Or, "I'll head out in a little while." Instead of, "I'll go later this afternoon," try, "I'll head out sometime this afternoon." And for something already completed, instead of, "I did it yesterday," try, "I got it done yesterday evening," or, "I managed to finish it last night." Managed to. Useful when something took real effort, wasn't completely easy. "I managed to finish everything before dinner." Or, "I managed to get some studying done despite being busy." Now, future plans. Instead of, "I will do it tomorrow," try, "I'm planning to get it done tomorrow." Or, "I should be able to finish it by tomorrow." Notice the difference. "I should be able to" sounds fairly confident, but it's not an absolute promise. Great for real life where things don't always go exactly as planned. "I should be able to send it by Friday." Or, "I should be able to finish the project by the end of the week." Genuinely useful in professional conversations especially. Let's practice. Think of something you need to finish soon: an assignment, some work, your English practice. Say, "I'm planning to get it done tomorrow." Now try, "I should be able to finish it by tomorrow." Feel that difference? The first sounds like a plan. The second expresses reasonable, honest confidence. That small distinction is exactly the kind of thing that makes your English more flexible. And flexibility, that's really the whole point of everything we're building here. Now, let's circle back to something from earlier: giving reasons. At a basic level, you probably lean on "because" for almost everything. Nothing wrong with that. But for more variety, you've got "since," "as," "due to." The main reason is, "I decided to stay home since the weather wasn't very good." Or, "I chose this option as it seemed more convenient." Or, "The main reason I changed my plans is that I had too much work to finish." And "due to" works well in more formal contexts. "The flight was delayed due to bad weather." Let's make it casual. Someone asks, "Why didn't you go out last night?" You could say, "I decided to stay in since I really needed some rest." Maybe you changed travel plans. "The main reason I changed my plans is that the weather looked pretty bad." Maybe you picked a different restaurant. "I chose this place because it was closer." Now level it up slightly. "I chose this place since it was more convenient." Small shift. Same idea. More flexibility in how you say it. And finally, talking about possibilities. This comes up all the time. Someone asks, "Are you going out tonight?" Not sure yet? Instead of the flat, "maybe," try, "I might go out later." Or, "There's a chance I'll go out later." Or, "It's possible that I'll take a break this afternoon." Or, "I may decide to stay home." These let you communicate real uncertainty, naturally, without sounding vague or unsure of yourself. "There's a chance I'll visit my friend this weekend." "It's possible that I'll work from home tomorrow." "I might go for a walk later." Now think about your evening, right now, genuinely. What might you do? Don't just say maybe. Build the full sentence. "I might," "maybe." "I might watch a movie tonight." Or, "There's a chance I'll go out for dinner." Or, "It's possible that I'll stay home and relax." That's exactly how a simple idea turns into usable English. And here's something worth noticing about everything we've covered so far. We were never really learning English as a pile of isolated grammar rules. We've been learning how to describe real life, what happened, what you're doing, what you used to do, what you might do, who you know, how you feel, what you prefer, why you made a decision, what you're hoping happens. That's the actual English you need, sitting across from another real person. Quick pause here. If you've been sticking with this channel for a while now, still here, still practicing every single part, drop yes in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. I genuinely love reading those. All right, back to it. Because here's the thing. Knowing how to describe your own life is one piece. But eventually, you need to keep a conversation going when the other person starts asking follow-up questions. And that's where things get noticeably harder. Someone asks what you did. You answer. Then they ask why. You explain. Then they disagree. You respond. Then they want more details. And suddenly, you're not giving isolated answers anymore. You're having an actual, real, back-and-forth conversation. We just spent time on possibilities, how to say what might happen, what you're weighing up, what you're not totally sure about yet. But real conversations don't stop at possibilities. Once you can express your ideas, you also need to express your preferences, your reactions, your responsibilities, your habits, your feelings, your intentions. That's exactly what we're building now. And here's something important to hold on to. You don't need hundreds of difficult words to sound more advanced. You need more natural ways to say the simple things. Let's start with something you talk about literally every day: likes and dislikes. Imagine someone asks, "Do you like this movie?" "Yes, I like it." Correct. But in a real, flowing conversation, you've got way more options. "I really enjoy this." "I'm a big fan of this." "This is definitely my kind of thing." Or, if you genuinely don't like it, "It's not really my thing." "I'm not a big fan of it." "I don't enjoy it very much." These are useful because they let you express your actual opinion without sounding overly blunt or direct. Imagine you're at a restaurant with a friend. They ask, "Do you like this kind of food?" You could say, "Yeah, I'm actually a big fan of it." Or, if you're not into it, "Honestly, it's not really my thing." Much more natural than the flat, "I don't like it." Now think about something you genuinely enjoy. Music, traveling, movies, learning English, whatever it is. Complete this. "I'm a big fan of," for example, "I'm a big fan of listening to podcasts," or "I'm a big fan of cooking at home." Now a little more personal. "I really enjoy taking long walks in the evening." Notice how much easier this feels the second you're talking about things that are actually part of your real life. You're not memorizing someone else's example. You're describing your own world. Now, something that happens constantly: expectations versus reality. Ever expected something to be easy, and then it just wasn't? Maybe you started learning English thinking, "I'll be fluent in a few months." And then, somewhere along the way, reality hit. "Wait, this is taking longer than I expected." Perfect moment for these expressions. Instead of the plain, "I expected it," try, "I was hoping it would turn out better." Or, "I thought it would be a lot easier." Or, "I didn't expect things to go this way." Then explain what actually happened. "But it ended up being more difficult than I imagined." Or, "But it turned out really well in the end." Or, "Unfortunately, things didn't go according to plan." Incredibly useful, because let's be honest, life almost never goes exactly according to plan. Maybe you planned a quiet evening, but your friend called. Maybe you planned to finish work early, but something unexpected came up. Maybe you were dreading a difficult meeting, and it actually went smoothly. "I thought the meeting would be stressful, but it turned out surprisingly well." Or, "I was expecting the journey to take an hour, but it ended up taking much longer." Now try one from your own life. Think of something you expected recently. Maybe easy, maybe quick, Maybe you expected someone to react a certain way. Build it. I thought it would be, but... For example, I thought it would be easy, but it ended up taking much longer than I expected. Say it slowly. Don't chase speed. The goal is for the structure to feel familiar in your mouth, because in a real conversation, you don't want to freeze and think about grammar for 10 seconds. You want it to just come back to you. Now, responding to suggestions. Someone gives you advice. You should take a break. You don't have to just say, okay. Try, that sounds like a good idea. I'll give that a try. I think that could really help. These show you're actually listening, actually weighing what they said. But what if you disagree? You don't need, no, I don't want to do that. Soften it. That's a good point, but I don't think it's the right option for me right now. Or, I appreciate the suggestion, but I might try something else. Or, I understand your idea, but I have a different approach in mind. Especially useful at work, in school, with people you don't know that well yet. You're disagreeing but staying respectful the whole time. Your coworker says, "Why don't you take tomorrow off?" Maybe you agree. "That sounds like a good idea. I probably do need some time to rest." Maybe you don't. "I appreciate the suggestion, but I think I'll handle it differently." Real communication. You don't have to agree with everyone. You just need to know how to disagree without creating unnecessary tension. Which brings us naturally to talking about responsibilities. Instead of the flat, "I have work," try, "I've got a lot on my plate right now." Means you're juggling a lot of responsibilities. Or, "I have a few tasks I need to take care of." Or, "I'm currently working on a few important things." Your friend asks, "Are you free tonight?" Instead of just, "No, I'm busy," try, "I'd love to, but I've got a lot on my plate right now." Gives them actual context, not just a wall. Now, finished something? Instead of, "I finished it," try, "I managed to get it done." Or, "I wrapped it up earlier today." Or, "I completed it just in time." Small variations, but they give you real control over how you sound. Think of something you need to finish today. Work, homework, cleaning, an English lesson. Say, "I've got a few things I need to take care of today." Now imagine you finished one already. "I managed to get it done," or "I wrapped it up earlier." Not because these sound fancy, but because native conversations are absolutely full of exactly these small phrases. Now, talking about frequency, you already know always, sometimes, never. But you don't have to lean on the same 3 words forever. Try, "I tend to," "I usually," "I hardly ever," "I occasionally," "I tend to drink tea in the evening," "I usually start my morning with some music," "I occasionally go for a walk in the morning," "I hardly ever eat fast food." Someone asks, "Do you exercise regularly?" Instead of sometimes, try, "I tend to exercise in the morning when I have enough time." A complete thought. And complete thoughts are what actually keep a conversation moving. Now your own routine. Something you usually do. "I usually start my day with a cup of coffee." Something you rarely do. "I hardly ever stay up past midnight these days." Something you do sometimes. "I occasionally go out for breakfast on weekends." Small patterns, but they give you so many ways to describe your everyday life. And speaking of everyday life, the weather. Seems small, but in English-speaking conversations, it comes up constantly. You meet someone in the morning, don't know what to say, talk about the weather. Instead of, "It's hot," try, "It's warmer than usual today." Instead of, "It's cold," try, "It's quite chilly this morning." Or, "The weather has been pretty unpredictable lately." And don't stop at just naming the weather. Talk about how it affects your day. The heat made it hard to focus. The rain slowed everything down. The cool breeze made the morning feel refreshing. Coworker says, "It's really cold today." You could say, "Yeah, it's definitely colder than usual. It took me a while to get out of bed this morning." That's a real conversation, not a textbook line. Look outside for a second right now. What's the weather actually like where you are? Don't just think, "It's hot." Try, "It's been a bit warmer than usual today." Then add the effect, "The heat made it difficult to stay focused." Or, "The sunlight made the morning feel bright and energetic." That's how simple vocabulary turns into real, natural communication. Now let's go somewhere a little deeper, showing empathy. Fluent English was never only about grammar and vocabulary, it's also about knowing how to respond to a person. Imagine someone tells you, "I've had a really difficult day." If you just say, "That's bad," the conversation goes cold, fast. Instead, "I'm sorry you're going through that," or "That sounds really tough," or "I can understand why you feel that way." These show empathy. They tell the other person, "I'm listening. This actually matters to me too." And when someone shares good news, instead of just, "Good job," "That's wonderful news. I'm really happy for you," or "You must feel proud of yourself." These create real connection, and that's something a lot of learners overlook completely. You can know thousands of English words, but if you can't respond naturally to someone's feelings, conversations still feel hard. Someone says, "I've been having a really difficult week." Respond, "I'm sorry you're dealing with that. I hope things get better soon." Your friend says, "I finally passed my exam." You say, "That's amazing. You must be really pleased." Not difficult sentences at all, but genuinely powerful, because people actually use language exactly like this, every day, in real conversations. Now, sometimes you understand most of a conversation, but one single sentence just doesn't land. Happens even to advanced speakers, honestly. So, asking for clarification. Instead of the bare, "What do you mean?" Soften it. "Could you explain that in another way?" "Do you mind giving me a bit more detail?" Or, "I just want to make sure I'm understanding correctly." Especially useful in workplaces, meetings, classes, any important conversation. Your manager explains something fast. You're not fully sure what they meant. Instead of nodding along and pretending, say, "Could you explain that a little more clearly?" Or, "Can you give me an example?" That's not weakness, that's attention, and it can save you from a much bigger misunderstanding later on. One more layer. Sometimes you need to explain what you're planning or intending to do. Instead of always, "I want to," try, "I'm thinking of," "I'm planning to," "I'm considering," "I'm thinking of taking a short break," "I'm planning to try a new hobby," "I'm considering making some changes to my routine." These sound thoughtful because they show you're actually weighing your options, not just making a snap statement. Think of something you might change, your schedule, your study routine, your exercise habits. Say, "I'm considering changing my routine," or "I'm planning to spend more time practicing English," or "I'm thinking of taking a few days off." Make it personal again. When the sentence connects to your real life, you've got a real reason to remember it. And look how much ground we've actually covered. Preferences, expectations versus reality, accepting and gently rejecting suggestions, responsibilities and frequency, weather, empathy, asking for clarification, intentions and plans. But there's one more skill that ties all of this together: giving advice. Because sooner or later, someone's going to tell you about a real problem, and then look at you and ask, "What do you think I should do?" And that's exactly where your English needs to stop being just correct and start being helpful, polite, human. There's a very common mistake learners make right here: giving advice too directly. "You should do this." Sometimes, sure, that's fine, but in a lot of situations, there's a much more natural way to say it. And that's exactly where we're picking things up. All right, you said it yourself, giving advice. You should do this isn't always the smoothest move. So let's actually fix that and see where it naturally leads us next. We've just practiced giving advice and asking for it too. And here's something worth noticing about real conversations. You don't always have an immediate answer ready to go. Sometimes someone asks you a question and you genuinely need a few seconds. Maybe they're asking you to decide something. Maybe they want your opinion. Or maybe, honestly, you just aren't sure yet. And that's completely normal. So let's talk about expressing doubt and hesitation. Instead of the immediate, "I don't know," try making it sound more natural, more thoughtful. "I'm not completely sure about that. I'm still thinking it over. I'm a bit uncertain at the moment." These don't mean you have zero idea. They simply show you're still working through something. Your friend asks, "Do you think we should go tonight?" You haven't decided. You could say, "I'm still thinking it over." Or, "I'm not completely sure yet." Or, "I need a little more time to think about it." And if someone's pushing for an instant answer, you can politely slow the whole thing down. Let me take a moment to consider that. Genuinely useful sentence, because in real life, you don't always have a perfect answer sitting there ready. Sometimes you actually need time. And knowing how to say that naturally, that's part of real fluency too. Someone asks, "Are you going to accept the offer?" You could say, "I'm still thinking it over." One more time. "I'm still thinking it over." Now try, "I'm a bit unsure right now. I need some time to decide." Feel the rhythm there. Don't rush through it. Let each phrase connect naturally. The goal was never speed. The goal is comfort. Now let's go one layer deeper. Because sometimes you're not just uncertain about a decision. Sometimes you're trying to describe how something actually made you feel. And that's a skill that can make your English so much more expressive. Describing emotions and reactions. Someone asks, "How was your day?" "It was good." Fine, nothing wrong with it. But if you want to actually express yourself, describe the reaction underneath it. Instead of, "I was happy," try, "I felt really uplifted," or "It really lifted my spirits," or "It made my day brighter." Maybe something unexpected happened that genuinely made you happy. "I was pleasantly surprised." Now the opposite. Maybe your day was rough. Instead of the flat, "I was sad," try, "I felt a bit down," or "It was a tough moment for me," or "I felt emotionally drained." These do something the basic word can't. They let the listener actually understand how deeply you experienced something. Imagine you finally get good news after weeks of waiting. "That really lifted my spirits." Or you've been working all day, completely wiped out. "The whole day was emotionally exhausting." Or, "I felt overwhelmed for a while." Genuinely useful, because real conversations aren't only about facts. People talk about how something made them feel, how they reacted, what surprised them, what disappointed them, what made their day just a little better. Think of one positive moment recently. Someone helped you, you finished something important, good news arrived. Say, "It really lifted my spirits," or "It made me feel genuinely happy." Now a harder moment, too much work, plans that fell apart. Say, "I felt overwhelmed for a while," or "It was an emotionally exhausting experience." Don't just repeat it mechanically. Actually picture the situation, feel what it meant, then say it again. That's genuinely how a phrase turns into something you can actually use, not just recognize. Now, connected to this, explaining cause and effect. Say you were late. You could say, "I was late because of traffic." Fine. But you've got other options. "The heavy traffic caused a delay." Or, "Traffic slowed me down, so I arrived later than expected." Notice, the idea didn't change at all. You just gave yourself more ways to say it. Instead of, I was tired because I worked a lot, try, working long hours left me feeling exhausted. Or, the long day took a lot of energy out of me. Especially useful when you're actually telling a story to someone. Someone asks, why didn't you finish your work? You could say, the noise made it difficult to concentrate. Or, I had too many interruptions so I couldn't focus properly. Now something positive. The weather was beautiful. Connect it to its effect. The pleasant weather helped me relax. That's what makes English feel connected instead of choppy. You're not just handing over separate facts, you're showing the relationship between them. Genuinely important B1 to B2 skill. Think of something that happened today. Maybe it tired you out. Maybe it helped you relax. Maybe it made work harder. Build the sentence. The noise made it hard to concentrate. One more time. The noise made it hard to concentrate. Or, the pleasant weather helped me relax. Now, something that can make your conversations feel warmer almost instantly, giving compliments naturally. Think about the last time someone genuinely did something well. A friend finished a big project. A coworker nailed a presentation. Someone helped you out when you actually needed it. Good job. Works, sure, but there's warmer ways to say it. You handled that really well. You did a fantastic job with that. Or, I'm impressed with the effort you put in. These land differently because they show you actually noticed the specific thing they did. Your friend worked genuinely hard on something. You could say, I'm proud of how hard you worked. Or, you really did a great job on that. And compliments aren't only for achievements, they work for appearance too. Instead of the plain, you look nice, try, you look wonderful today, or, that outfit really suits you. Or even, you look really confident today. Imagine your friend just finished something difficult. Say, you really did a great job on that. One more time, you really did a great job on that. Now, someone helped you with something. You could say, I'm really impressed with the effort you put in. These matter because communication was never just about transferring information. It's also about making people feel actually seen and appreciated. Which brings us to talking about interests and hobbies. When someone meets you for the first time, they'll probably ask, what do you like to do in your free time? Basic answer, I like reading. Correct, but let's build on it. I enjoy reading in my free time. Or, I'm really into books and learning. Or, reading helps me relax and disconnect. Notice, this gives the listener somewhere to go next. If you just say, I like reading, the conversation can just stop there. But if you say, I enjoy reading because it helps me relax after a busy day, now there's a natural next question sitting right there. They'll probably ask, what kind of books do you enjoy? And just like that, you've created an entire second conversation out of one sentence. Let's try music. Instead of, I like music, try, I'm a big fan of music. Or, listening to music helps me unwind. Maybe walking. I enjoy going for long walks when I need to clear my head. Maybe, and this one's close to home, learning English. I really enjoy practicing English because it gives me a sense of progress. Now the sentence has personality. It's not just vocabulary sitting on a page, it's your actual life in English. And that's exactly the point. The more you connect English to things you genuinely do, the less it feels like a school subject you're stuck studying, and the more it starts feeling like a language you actually live inside. So think about yourself for a second. What do you genuinely enjoy? Books? Music? Travel? Cooking? Sports? Movies? Walking? Family time? Pick one. Complete this. I really enjoy, for example, I really enjoy listening to podcasts while I go for a walk. Or, I'm a big fan of watching movies in English. Or, Reading helps me relax after a stressful day. Say your sentence slowly. Then say it again, this time without looking at anything. Small exercise, surprisingly powerful. And remember, you don't need complicated vocabulary to sound advanced. You need to express simple ideas in flexible, natural ways. That's honestly the whole goal of everything we've built together so far. We've now covered uncertainty, emotions, cause and effect, compliments, interests, hobbies. But real conversations never stay on one single topic for long, do they? One moment you're talking about your weekend, then someone asks about your plans. Then suddenly you're talking about work, family, travel, money, or some problem you're quietly dealing with. And that's exactly where real fluency actually gets tested, not in a single topic, but in the jump between topics. There are a few specific conversation skills that help you handle those sudden shifts without freezing, without translating every single sentence in your head first. So stay with me here, because that's exactly what we're building next. Think of something you genuinely enjoy doing. Maybe cooking, maybe just being outside, maybe collapsing in front of a movie after a long day. Now say that idea out loud, naturally. Try, I'm really into cooking these days. Or, I enjoy spending time outdoors. It helps me feel refreshed. One more time, a little slower. I enjoy spending time outdoors. It helps me feel refreshed. Notice, adding just a small reason makes the whole sentence more interesting. You're not just telling someone what you like, you're telling them why. And that gives the other person something real to respond to. They might ask, what kind of food do you like cooking? Or, where do you usually go when you want to relax? And just like that, one simple sentence turned into an actual conversation. That's exactly what we've been building this whole time. Not isolated English, connected English. The kind you can genuinely use with a real person in real time. Now, real conversations aren't always smooth, are they? People disagree. People misunderstand each other. People just see things differently sometimes. So let's work on something that helps you stay calm and respectful when that happens, handling disagreements politely. Someone says something you strongly disagree with. Your gut reaction might be, you're wrong. But in most real situations, at work, with someone new, in anything remotely serious, that lands too hard. Instead, soften it. I see your point, but I have a different perspective. Or, I understand what you're saying, but I'm not sure I agree. Another good one. You make a valid point. However, I see things differently. These don't mean you're backing down from your opinion. You're simply showing respect while stating your own view. Someone says, I think working from home is always better. You don't fully agree. You could respond, I understand your point, but I see it differently. One more time. I understand your point, but I see it differently. Or, that's an interesting idea, but I'm not entirely convinced. Now, maybe you don't even fully understand why they think that way. Instead of jumping straight into an argument, ask for clarification first. Could you explain that a bit more? Or, could you help me understand what you mean? Important habit to build. Sometimes the best response to disagreement isn't a counter-argument at all. It's a better question. Someone gives you an opinion you don't share. Say, I see your point, but I have a different perspective. Now, I understand what you're saying, but I'm not sure I agree. One more. Could you explain that a bit more? Say each one slowly. Don't chase perfection, chase calm. Because remember, fluency was never about speaking fast. It's about expressing your thoughts clearly, calmly, and with confidence. And that matters most exactly when a conversation gets a little complicated. Now, something you'll use constantly in actual daily life, expressing needs and preferences. Shopping, ordering food, booking an appointment, asking someone for help. You need something. But how you ask for it completely changes how your English lands. Instead of the blunt, I need this, Soften it. I'm looking for, or I was hoping to find, or do you happen to have? Shopping for a phone. Instead of, I need a new phone, say, I'm looking for a new phone with a good camera. Or, I was hoping to find something affordable but reliable. Shopping for clothes. I'm looking for a jacket that's warm but lightweight. Or, I was hoping to find something in a darker color. Small shifts, but they make your English sound noticeably smoother, more natural. Imagine you're in a cafe, want something warm. Say, I'd like something warm to drink. Now ask about an option. Do you happen to have oat milk? Again, do you happen to have oat milk? Short phrases, extremely useful ones. Now, a situation you're almost guaranteed to run into, ordering food naturally. You're at a restaurant. Server asks, what can I get for you? Instead of the plain, I want chicken, try, I'll have the grilled chicken with vegetables, please. Or, could I get a chicken sandwich without mayonnaise? Want to change something in your order? Is it possible to make it less spicy? Or, could you leave out the onions? Simple phrases, but genuinely useful the second you're actually speaking English outside your own home. Ordering a drink. Could I get a medium latte, please? Again, could I get a medium latte, please? Now changing your order. Is it possible to make it less spicy? Now, making appointments. Calling a clinic. Booking a haircut. Arranging a meeting. Instead of, I want an appointment, try, I'd like to schedule an appointment. Or, is there any availability tomorrow? Or, could I book a time for this afternoon? Sounds organized, sounds polite. And if something changes and you can't make it, instead of the blunt, I can't come, try, I need to reschedule. Or, is it possible to move my appointment to a later time? Calling a clinic. Say, I'd like to schedule an appointment for next week. Now ask, is there any availability in the morning? And if you need to shift it, I need to reschedule. Is there a later time available? Repeat that slowly. These are exactly the kinds of sentences that make a real phone call, the kind that catches everyone off guard at first, feel manageable. Because here's the honest truth. You can understand English perfectly while listening to a lesson like this, and still feel completely different the moment someone asks you something unexpectedly on the phone. Your mind searches. You hesitate. You translate. And a sentence you understood 5 minutes ago suddenly feels hard to produce. That's exactly why we're not just learning vocabulary here. We're training responses. Now, a situation where those responses become especially valuable, solving problems calmly. Things go wrong in everyday life constantly. An order arrives incorrect. A product doesn't work. A service isn't what you expected. An instruction just doesn't make sense. Something, somewhere, doesn't go according to plan. In those exact moments, you don't want your English to just disappear on you. Instead of, this is wrong, stay calm. Try, I think there might be a misunderstanding. Or, I'm having a bit of trouble with this. Or, could you help me figure this out? Explaining the actual problem. The issue I'm facing is, or, what seems to be happening is, and when you need help fixing it, could you please take a look at it? Or, is there anything we can do to fix this? Restaurant order arrives wrong. You could say, I think there might be a mistake with my order. Then, could you help me sort this out? Far more useful than just getting visibly frustrated. Repeat, could you help me sort this out? Technical problem this time. I'm having a bit of trouble with my account. Or, could you take a look at this for me? These give you real control over the conversation without ever sounding aggressive. And that, staying calm when something's actually gone wrong, is genuinely part of advanced communication. Now let's get a little more emotional. Because real life isn't just about problems, we react to good news too. To invitations, to exciting plans, and sometimes, honestly, to things we don't want to do at all. Expressing enthusiasm naturally, instead of always, "That's great." Try, "That sounds amazing. I'd really love to try that. That's exciting." Your friend says, "I'm going to visit Italy next month." You could say, "That sounds amazing. I'd really love to go there someday." Now, someone suggests something you're just not into. Instead of the flat, "I don't like it," soften it. "I'm not too excited about that." Or, "That's not really my style." Or, "I'm not sure that's something I'd enjoy." These let you stay honest without sounding unnecessarily negative about it. Someone invites you to try something new. Say, "That sounds wonderful. Now, I'd really love to do that." And if you're just not interested, "I don't think that's really for me." Again, "I don't think that's really for me." And finally, something that comes up constantly, responding to invitations. Someone asks, "Do you want to come to the party this weekend?" Don't just answer yes. Try, "I'd love to," or "That sounds great," or simply, "Count me in." Accepting? Add a natural follow-up to keep it moving. "I'd love to. What time should I be there?" But sometimes you genuinely can't go. Instead of, "No, I can't," try, "I appreciate the invitation, but I won't be able to make it." Or, "That sounds lovely, but I already have plans." Or simply warmly, "Maybe next time." Someone invites you. Say, "I'd love to. What time should I be there?" Now, you can't make it. "Thank you for inviting me, but I won't be able to join this time." Repeat that slowly. These small responses might feel simple, sitting here just listening, but picture yourself actually standing in a cafe, actually talking to a coworker, actually calling a clinic, ordering food for real, talking to someone you just met 5 minutes ago for the first time. That's exactly when having these expressions sitting ready in your mind makes all the difference in the world. And we're not finished yet, not even close. Because the next step takes everyday English somewhere even more practical. How you actually describe the small challenges that show up throughout your day, and more importantly, what you did to actually handle them. Let's continue from right where we left off. You've already practiced describing challenges, explaining your thoughts, agreeing and disagreeing politely, asking better questions, talking through decisions. But there's one more part of real conversation we often don't think about until we're actually standing in it. Emotions. Imagine you've been waiting for an important answer all day, genuinely anxious about it. And finally, the message comes through. Everything is okay. What do you actually say? Maybe just, "I'm happy." Correct. But you can express that so much more naturally. "What a relief." Or, "I'm so glad to hear that." Or, "That's a huge weight off my shoulders." That last one especially. Perfect for when you've genuinely been worried about something for a while. Think of a time you were nervous about something, an appointment, an exam, an interview, a decision. Then good news finally arrives. Say, "What a relief." Again, "What a relief." Now, "I'm so glad to hear that." And one more. "That's a huge weight off my shoulders." Notice, these communicate more than plain vocabulary ever could. They carry actual emotion. And that's exactly what makes everyday English feel alive instead of mechanical. Now, back to something everyone deals with, talking about challenges and how you handle them. A genuinely difficult day. Too much work. Missed the bus. An argument with someone. Plans completely falling apart. Instead of the flat, "My day was hard," try, "I had a few challenges today." Or, "It was a demanding day, but I managed to get through it." Or, "Things were a bit overwhelming, but I handled them." These sound more thoughtful, more confident, like someone who's genuinely in control, even when the day wasn't easy. Think of one small challenge you had recently. running late, too much on your plate. Say, it was a bit overwhelming, but I handled it. Again, slower. It was a bit overwhelming, but I handled it. You can also explain how you actually solved it. I took a moment to think things through. Or, I tried a different approach. Or, I asked for help and it made things easier. These do something important. They show more than just what happened. They show how you responded. You're not only describing a problem, you're showing how you dealt with it. Genuinely powerful communication skill. Try, I tried a different approach and it worked out. Again, I tried a different approach and it worked out. Now let's connect this to something else. Describing your routine naturally. We all talk about routines. When you wake up, when you work, when you study, how you spend your evenings. Basic English often sounds like, I wake up early. I study at night. I read before bed. Nothing wrong there. But at this level, add a little context. Instead of, I wake up early, try, I usually start my mornings early to stay productive. Or, my day typically begins around sunrise. Instead of, I study in the evening, try, I tend to study in the evenings when things are quieter. Or, I like to review my tasks at the end of the day. Now the sentence gives the listener an actual picture, not just a fact. Think about your morning. Maybe you've got a quiet routine before work. You could say, I like to take a quiet moment in the morning to prepare for the day. Or maybe you relax before bed. I usually wind down in the evening with some reading. One more time slower. I usually wind down in the evening with some reading. Wind down. Really useful phrase. Means to gradually relax after a busy day. Don't just memorize it as one isolated word. Connect it to your own life. I wind down with a cup of tea. I wind down by reading. I usually wind down before going to bed. That's exactly how vocabulary turns into something usable, not just something recognizable. Now let's go a little deeper, expressing your thoughts clearly. Sometimes you know exactly what you want to say in your own language, but the second you try to say the same idea in English, it feels stuck. You know the idea, you just don't know how to open it. A useful fix, natural sentence openers. Instead of always defaulting to, I think, try, the way I see it is, or, from my perspective, or, what I've been thinking lately is. These give your brain a little breathing room to organize the actual idea. For example, instead of, I think the weather will change, say, the way I see it, the weather might change soon. Or, from my perspective, it looks like it could rain later. Think of something happening in your life today. Maybe it's a productive day. Say, from my perspective, it's been a productive day. Or maybe you're stuck on something difficult. The way I see it, we just need a little more time to finish this. Repeat that slowly. Don't rush it. Let one idea flow naturally into the next. That's exactly how you train yourself to actually think in complete English thoughts, not translated fragments. Now, something important, expressing different levels of agreement. Agreement was never just yes or no. Sometimes you completely agree, sometimes only partly. And sometimes you understand someone's point without agreeing with it at all. If you strongly agree, I completely agree. Or, I'm on the same page. Or, that makes perfect sense to me. Someone says, taking short breaks helps improve productivity. You could say, I completely agree. It helps refresh the mind. Now, you agree, but only to a point. Try, I agree to some extent. Or, I see what you mean, but I think it depends on the situation. Far more precise than a flat yes. Try that one. I see what you mean, but I think it depends on the situation. Again, slowly. I see what you mean, but I think it depends on the situation. Genuinely useful in workplace conversations, group discussions, classes, even casual chats with friends. Because real conversations are rarely completely black or white. which leads us to disagreeing without creating tension. Talking to a coworker and you strongly disagree with their idea, you could just say, "I disagree." Grammatically fine. But depending on the room, it can land too hard. Soften it. "I see your point, but..." Or, "I understand what you're saying, however, I see things differently." Or, "I respect your opinion, but I have a different view." Try, "I understand your point, but I see things differently." Again, "I understand your point, but I see things differently." And, "I respect your perspective, but I'm not entirely convinced." Especially useful with someone older, a manager, a teacher, a customer, anyone you don't know that well yet. You can be confident and respectful at the same time. That's a real cornerstone of natural communication. Now let's change direction slightly, asking better questions. A good conversation was never just about talking. It's also about asking questions that invite the other person to keep going. Instead of the basic, "What do you do?" Try, "So, what kind of work are you involved in?" Instead of, "Where do you live?" Try, "Where are you based these days?" And if someone tells you about their job or hobby, don't just stop there. Ask, "How did you get into that?" Or, "What do you enjoy most about it?" These create room for a longer, richer conversation. Imagine you just met someone who does photography. Instead of only, "Are you a photographer?" Ask, "How did you get into photography?" That question invites a whole story. And stories, that's what actually creates real conversations. Meeting someone new. Ask, "So, what kind of work are you involved in?" Now, "How did you get into that field?" And finally, "What do you enjoy most about it?" Say them slowly. Don't try to memorize all three at once. Pick one. Make it yours. Use it in a real conversation this week. Now, talking about an uncertain future. Someone asks, "What do you think will happen next?" Maybe you genuinely don't know. You don't want to sound lost, but you also don't want to fake certainty. Instead of, "I don't know what will happen," try, "I'm not sure how everything will turn out." Or, "It's a bit hard to predict right now." Or, "I'm still deciding what direction to take." These sound thoughtful, grounded, and if you're feeling optimistic, "I have a feeling things will work out." Or, "I'm hopeful that the situation will improve." Think of something you're genuinely unsure about. Work, travel, even your English progress. Say, "I'm not sure how things will go, but I'm staying positive." Again, "I'm not sure how things will go, but I'm staying positive." Beautiful sentence, honestly. It holds uncertainty without ever sounding negative. And finally, talking about decisions. Choosing between two jobs, two courses, whether to travel or not. Instead of the flat, "I chose this." Try, "I decided to go with this option." Or, "I ended up choosing this because it felt right." Or, "I went with this decision after thinking it over." These explain not just what you chose, but how you got there. Two choices in front of you. Say, "I ended up choosing the simpler option." Or, "I decided to go with what felt more comfortable." Slower. "I decided to go with what felt more comfortable." And sometimes, completely normal, you change your mind. You can say, "I changed my mind," or "I reconsidered," or "I decided to take a different approach." And this is exactly where small wording choices start to completely change how natural you sound. Because the goal was never complicated English just to seem advanced. The goal is choosing the right expression for the exact moment you're in. And there's more ahead, because next, we're going to bring all of these pieces together in something even more realistic. Reactions, choices, problems, everyday moments without stopping to translate a single sentence in your head. So stay with me, because what comes next pulls everything we've built so far into one place. Let's continue naturally from where we left off. Sometimes you finally finish something that's been sitting on your mind for days, stressing you out quietly in the background. Maybe an important project. Maybe a problem you finally solved. Maybe a result you've been anxiously waiting on. And in that exact moment, "I'm relieved" is correct. But real conversations give you so many more natural ways to say it. "I'm glad that's over." Or, "That's a huge weight off my shoulders." Or, "I feel much better now that it's done." These carry the actual emotion behind the situation, not just the fact of it. Think of something stressful that recently ended: an exam, a difficult meeting, an important phone call. Say, "I'm so glad that's done." Again, "I'm so glad that's done." One more. "That's a big weight off my mind." Notice, you're not just learning another synonym for relieved. You're learning how English speakers actually express a feeling, differently, depending on the situation. That's a far more useful kind of vocabulary than a dictionary list. Now, something small that makes a surprisingly big difference: natural transition phrases. Short expressions that help you move from one thought to the next. "Well, actually, basically, honestly, to be honest." They seem tiny, almost invisible, but they can stop your speech from sounding robotic almost instantly. Someone asks, "Why did you change your plans?" Instead of jumping straight to, "I changed my plans because I was tired," try, "Well, I was feeling pretty tired, so I decided to stay home." Or, "Actually, I already finished that." Or, "Basically, we just need to adjust a few things." These give you a natural way to organize your thoughts, and honestly, a second to actually think, right there in real time. Someone asks why something isn't finished yet. Say, "Well, I need a little more time." Again, "Well, I need a little more time." Now, "Actually, I already took care of that." And, "Basically, we just need to adjust a few things." Say them calmly, don't rush. Let the transition connect naturally into the rest of the sentence. Real speakers don't jump directly from one full sentence to the next. They use these little connectors to keep everything flowing. Now, imagine you're talking with a friend, and they suddenly drop unexpected news on you. A promotion, moving cities, winning a competition, something you genuinely didn't see coming. Expressing surprise and reactions. If your only response is, "Wow," fine, that works. But you can make it so much more expressive. "Oh, I wasn't expecting that." Or, "That's surprising." Or, "Seriously? That's interesting." If it's exciting news, "That's incredible." "That's amazing to hear." Or, "I can't believe it. That's fantastic." Now, disappointing news. Instead of the flat, "Oh no," try, "That's too bad." Or, "I'm sorry to hear that." Or, "That must be frustrating." These show you're not just hearing the words, you're actually responding to the person's emotion behind them. Friend says, "I got promoted today." You respond, "That's amazing, congratulations." Again, "That's amazing, congratulations." Now they say, "I had a really difficult day at work." You could say, "That's really tough. I hope tomorrow is easier for you." Repeat that slowly. This kind of emotional response matters because conversations were never only about trading information. They're about connection. Now, something that comes up constantly, talking about progress: your English, your work, your studies, your health, a personal project, a skill you're building. Instead of the plain, "I'm improving," try, "I've been making steady progress," or "Things are gradually getting better," or "I'm getting more comfortable with it." And if progress feels slow, because it often does, say, "It's taking a bit longer than expected, but I'm getting there." Or, "I'm still figuring some things out, but I'm improving step by step." Genuinely useful mindset, as much as it is a useful sentence. Think of something you're working on, maybe your English right now. Say, I've been making steady progress lately. Again, I've been making steady progress lately. Now, I'm still learning, but I'm feeling more confident. These let you talk about progress honestly, without pretending everything's already perfect. You acknowledge the struggle and the improvement at the same time. Now, imagine you're standing in a store with 2 jackets in front of you, or choosing between 2 restaurants, or deciding between 2 jobs. Describing choices and options. Instead of the plain, I have 2 options, try, I'm deciding between 2 choices, or I have a couple of possibilities, or I'm torn between these 2 options. Torn between, especially useful when both choices genuinely appeal to you. I'm torn between staying home and going out. 2 choices in front of you. Say, I'm deciding between these 2 options. Now, I'm torn between these 2 choices. Then explain the decision. I went with this option because it seemed more practical. Or, I chose this one because it felt more comfortable. You're not just practicing vocabulary here, you're practicing how to explain your own thinking out loud. Major part of sounding genuinely confident in English. Now, preferences, with more detail. Instead of, I like this more, try, I tend to prefer this because it feels more comfortable. Or, I usually go for this since it suits me better. Or, I'm more drawn to this option. Someone asks, do you prefer working in the morning or at night? You could say, I tend to prefer working in the morning because I can concentrate better. Or, I usually go for morning sessions since I have more energy. Something you don't like, instead of the blunt, I don't like it. Soften it. It's not really my style. Or, it doesn't quite appeal to me. Or, I'm not particularly fond of that. 2 activities, reading versus watching movies. Say, I tend to prefer reading because it helps me relax. Or, I'm more drawn to outdoor activities, they give me energy. Now, something you don't enjoy much. It's not really my style. Or, I'm not particularly fond of that. The goal was never sounding complicated. It's having enough options that you're not repeating the same flat sentence every single time. Now, expressing urgency and importance. Your boss sends an urgent message, a problem with an order, a deadline creeping up fast. Instead of always, this is important, be more precise. This needs immediate attention. Or, this is quite urgent. Or, we should take care of this as soon as possible. Something needs handling quickly. Say, this needs to be handled as soon as possible. Again, this needs to be handled as soon as possible. Or, it's quite urgent, we should act quickly. But not everything's urgent. Sometimes you want to tell someone to relax a little. There's no rush. Take your time, whenever you get a chance. Friend asks, do you need this right now? You respond, no, there's no rush. Just send it whenever you get a chance. Natural, polite, clear. Now, talking about conditions and possibilities. Instead of always, if this happens, I'll do that. Try, if that's the case, then I'll. Or, if things go as planned, I'll. Or, should anything change, I'll make sure to let you know. That last one sounds a bit more formal, genuinely useful at work or anything professional. Talking about tomorrow. Say, if everything goes well, I'll finish by tomorrow. Again, if everything goes well, I'll finish by tomorrow. Now, should anything change, I'll let you know. Powerful phrase, shows you're prepared for change without sounding anxious about it. Works for travel plans, work projects, appointments, study schedules, family plans, almost anything life throws at you. Now let's switch roles completely. Imagine a friend is having a genuinely hard day, nervous about an interview, worried about an exam, struggling in a new job. They tell you, I don't think I can do this. You can do it works. But there's warmer, more meaningful ways to respond. I believe in you. Or, you're more capable than you think. Or, you've handled difficult things before. You'll get through this too. If they're nervous, take a deep breath. You're doing great. Or, just take it step by step. You're on the right track. Your friend's stressed. Say, you're stronger than you realize. Again, you're stronger than you realize. Now, take it one step at a time. You're doing great. Good communication was never only about advanced vocabulary. It's also about showing real empathy. And when your English lets you express support naturally, your conversations become genuinely meaningful, not just correct. And finally, expressing satisfaction and dissatisfaction. Something you ordered arrives. A project finishes. Someone helps you. You try something new. Sometimes it goes really well. Instead of the plain, I'm happy with it, try, I'm really pleased with how it turned out. Or, I'm satisfied with the results. Or, this is exactly what I was hoping for. Think of something that went well. Say, I'm really pleased with how it turned out. Again, I'm really pleased with how it turned out. Now, the result isn't quite what you hoped. Instead of the flat, I don't like it. Try, this didn't quite meet my expectations. Or, I was hoping for something a bit different. Or, I'm not entirely satisfied with this. Especially useful when you need to give honest feedback without sounding harsh or rude about it. Another real step toward confident B1 to B2 level communication, because you don't just need more words. You need more control over how your words land, sometimes enthusiastic, sometimes careful, sometimes polite, sometimes direct, sometimes just quietly supportive. And sometimes, you simply need to explain what happened without getting stuck halfway through. We've been building all of that, one situation at a time. But there's still one more layer to all of this, actually putting these expressions together so they stop feeling like separate sentences you memorized in isolation and start feeling like real English, the kind you can genuinely reach for in an actual conversation. And that's exactly where things get a lot more practical from here. I'm really pleased with the results. Now think about something that didn't quite turn out the way you hoped. Maybe you worked hard on something and the result just wasn't quite right. You could say, it didn't quite meet my expectations. Again, it didn't quite meet my expectations. Notice, so much softer than the blunt, I don't like it. And that's exactly the kind of thing we've been building this entire time. You don't always need complicated vocabulary. Sometimes you just need the right expression for the moment you're actually in. And that's really what this whole journey has been. Not a random list of English phrases to memorize. A real collection of expressions you can actually reach for, mid-conversation, with a real person in front of you. Because fluency was never built by memorizing hundreds of sentences once and moving on. It's built by hearing useful language, understanding it, repeating it, and eventually using it without translating a single word in your head. Which brings us to one final skill, summarizing your thoughts. Imagine you've just told a friend a whole long story about your day. Busy morning, missed the bus, showed up late, then somehow still finished an important task. Your friend looks at you and asks, "So, how did everything go?" You don't need to repeat every single detail. You can summarize. To sum it up, it was busy but productive. Or, basically everything went smoothly except for the morning rush. Or simply, in short, it was a pretty good day. These give someone the main idea without dragging them through every detail again. Think about your day-to-day. Stressful, relaxing, productive, whatever it was. Say, to sum it up, I accomplished most of what I planned. Again, to sum it up, I accomplished most of what I planned. Or, in short, it's been a pretty good day. Small skill. Genuinely useful, though, at work, with friends, telling stories, explaining problems, whenever someone just wants the main point. Now, looking ahead, talking about future possibilities, we never fully know what's coming. Sometimes hopeful, sometimes uncertain, sometimes just weighing options. Instead of always saying, maybe, there's a possibility that, or it's likely that, or I'm considering the idea of. For example, I'm considering the idea of starting a new hobby, or there's a possibility that I'll travel next month, or I'm looking forward to improving my communication skills even more. Make it personal, something you'd genuinely like to do soon. Exercise, travel, English. Say, there's a possibility that I'll try something new this week. Again, there's a possibility that I'll try something new this week. Now, I'm excited about learning more English in the coming days. You weren't just practicing future grammar there. You were practicing how to express hope, possibility, intention, things you talk about constantly in real life without even noticing. Now, before we finish, there's something I genuinely want you to hold on to. You don't need perfect English to communicate well. You don't need every grammar rule memorized, and you definitely don't need to wait until your English is perfect before you start speaking. Because if you keep waiting for perfection, you might just keep waiting. Forever. Confidence was never about never feeling nervous. Confidence is being willing to speak, even when you might get something wrong. So instead of thinking, what if I say something wrong? Try, I can express this clearly. Instead of, my English isn't good enough, try, I'm improving every day. And instead of, I don't know enough words, try, I can communicate this idea in a simple way. Let's practice that mindset together. Actually together, right now. Take a slow breath. Say, I'm improving every day. Again, I'm improving every day. Now, I can communicate my thoughts in English. And one more. I'm becoming more fluent step by step. Don't rush those. Let them actually sink in, because your mindset shapes how willing you are to use the language at all. Quick recap before we close. We started with natural greetings and small talk, moving past the basic, hello, how are you, into something that actually feels real. Then explaining situations, giving opinions, making suggestions, handling misunderstandings, exactly the moments where most learners get stuck. Then emotions, experiences, preferences, goals, future plans, not just what happened, but how you actually felt about it. Then real-life communication, ordering food, appointments, asking for help, solving problems, disagreements, invitations. The situations you'll genuinely face outside a classroom. And finally, confidence. Because knowing English and actually using it are two completely different things. Your goal was never to sound perfect. Your goal is to feel comfortable expressing yourself. And that only comes through repetition. One sentence, one conversation, one small improvement at a time. One last thing before you go. Think of one thing you genuinely want to improve. Speaking, listening, pronunciation, vocabulary, or just feeling less nervous when someone speaks English to you. Now finish this sentence. I'm working on this, and I will get better. Say it out loud. Don't just read it in your head, actually say it. Your brain needs to connect the words to your voice. And if you make a mistake, that's fine. Say it again. If you forget a word, find another way around it. That's real communication. You don't stop a conversation just because one word is missing. You keep going. That habit right there, that's exactly what makes you stronger. Because English fluency was never built in one perfect study session. It's built through small moments like this one. You hear a phrase. You repeat it. You use it later. You make a mistake. You try again. And slowly, something shifts. The sentence that once felt difficult starts feeling familiar, then natural, and eventually it just comes out without you thinking about every single word. That's progress. So don't try to remember every expression from today. Pick 2 or 3 that genuinely felt useful to you. Maybe, I see where you're coming from. Maybe, I'm still thinking it over. Maybe, I really appreciate it. Or, I'm making steady progress. Use one in a real conversation today. That's exactly where your practice turns into real English. Now, here's something worth being honest about. Most people who start a lesson like this never actually finish it, and even fewer come back and watch it a second time. But repetition is genuinely how this sticks, not watching once and moving on. So if you want to be in that small group of people who actually get fluent instead of just watching one video and forgetting it by next week, come back and watch this again. Let these phrases sink in a second time. That's honestly the difference. And if you've made it all the way here, to the very end, comment "Yes" below, because I've got something special waiting for you, just for the people who stay till the last minute. I'm genuinely proud of you for showing up today. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. I'm Sarah, and you've been learning with me here on English Speaking Way Extra. I hope this lesson didn't just teach you new expressions. I hope it made you feel a little more comfortable actually using English in your real life. If this was useful, like the video and share it with someone else who's working on their English too. And tell me in the comments, which phrase from today are you actually going to use in real life? Just one sentence. Doesn't need to be perfect. Just practice. And if you enjoyed learning this way, subscribe to English Speaking Way Extra, because we'll keep building your English through real situations, natural conversations, and genuine speaking practice. For now, take a deep breath. Give yourself credit for the work you did today. And remember, you don't have to become fluent overnight. You just have to be a little better than you were yesterday. Keep learning, keep speaking, keep believing in yourself. I'm Sarah, and I'll see you in the next lesson.